Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Sallallahu sallam wa barak ala abdihi wa rasulih nabiyina wa imamina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'een. Amma ba'd. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. Marhaban. Welcome to all the disciples watching, local, worldwide, international, etc. Before we take a few questions tonight, by the permission of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, following our long and rich tradition of ta'rif bil kutub wa ta'rif bil maktaba al ilmiya, introducing, showing, sharing certain books and certain parts and pieces of the library. فمن الكتب المهمة غاية والتي لا يستغني عنها طالب حديث محترم من يحترم نفسه العلل الواردة في الأحاديث النبوية، تأليف الشيخ الإمام الحافظ أبي الحسن علي ابن عمر ابن أحمد ابن مهدي الدارقطني رحمه الله تعالى، المتوفى سنة 385 للهجرة. أوكي، لا يستغني عن هذا الكتاب طالب حديث إطلاقا قولا واحدا، لا يستغني عن اقتنائه، شرائه، استعارته، لا يستغني عن قراءته، عن حفظه، عن البحث فيه والنظر فيه والإفادة منه. A book in which a student, obviously speaking to a specific crowd and audience here, advanced students and advanced studies, a book that is absolutely indispensable for the student of hadith, and that is Al-Ilal Al-Warida, which is commonly known as Ilal Al-Daraqutni. Imam Daraqutni rahimahullah ta'ala of the 4th century, okay, a great alim, that great hadith critic. Obviously several volumes. This copy, Dar Taiba, Tahqiq, Sheikh Mahfuz Rahman al-Salafi rahimahullah, is something that you must have in your library. And obviously it deals with the ilal of the hadith khairan, which we're not going to explain or get into right now. What's important is, in the introduction, the editor, he mentions 3 people. He says, Tarajim likulli aw likullin min. 3 biographies of Darqutni, Al-Burqani, Ibn al-Kharqi. Okay, these 3 imams, these 3 names. Obviously Darqutni is the author, and his main student and disciple, Al-Burqani, rahimahullah ta'ala. He's the narrator of the book from Darqutni, Al-Rabi anhu. And as a fa'ida that we'll read from his biography, and I remember reading this when I was in Medina some years ago, and I was sitting in the Prophet's Masjid between Maghrib and Isha, waiting for Sheikh Abdul Muhsin to come out to his chair and start his class. Okay, so the editor, he's speaking about Al-Burqani. He says here, speaking about how he grew up, where he grew up, his early teachers, so on and so forth. He says, Nash'atuhu. Okay, all right, طيب. He says, ثم اشتغل بالحديث وعلومه واعتنى بها عناية فائقة، فسمع أولا في بلده، ثم سافر إلى بغداد وبلدان أخرى، وسمع الحديث من جماعة من الشيوخ ببغداد وجرجانة إلى آخره، حتى صار في الحديث إماما، وكان شغوفا بعلم الحديث حريصا عليه، حتى أصبح شغله الشاغل، وخشي أن يصرفه عن بقية العلوم، فقال لبعض الفقهاء: ادعو الله أن ينزع شهوة الحديث من قلبي، فإن حبه قد غلب علي، فليس لي اهتمام بالليل والنهار إلا به، أو نحو هذا القول. وهذا طبعا مأخوذ من تاريخ بغداد. He talks about how he grew up studying, learning from his teachers locally. Then he traveled. He went out. He traveled to seek ilm. And after he learned from these different scholars, and he was he was young. Okay, yarbu ala arba'ati ashara aman. He was like 14 years old. He then focused and specialized in hadith and in the sciences of hadith. Okay. And that was the thing. He says, وَعَتَنَا بِهَا إِنَايَةً فَائِقَةً. And he took hold of the reins of that science and he spent his time, he spent his money, he spent his energy just with ilm al-hadith. All right. And then he became an imam afterwards. وَكَانَ شَغُوفًا. He says he was in love. He was in ardent love and passion with ilm al-hadith. He was very diligent and earnest to study and learn hadith and deal with his sciences until that was the thing that kept him busy day and night. Day and night. That's all he wanted to study, all he wanted to read, all he wanted to focus on. It became so bad that one day he said to some fuqaha, Ya Hamza, نسيت الخطة. النسيان يا أخي. النسيان مشكلة. آفة العلم النسيان. السلف كانوا يقولون آفة العلم النسيان. نسيت الخطة. نسيها صح؟ تماما. ليس
بعضه
إطلاقا، يعني راح من رأسه كل الذي قلته صح؟
نعم.
فكر همزة، فكر، استرجع، فكر، go back. حمزة كبير، ساعده. أنت تذكرت ولا نسيت؟ نسيته؟ لا أيوة صح تفضل. الله يعين. حمزة أنت صغير شاب، ليس لك أولاد ولا زوجة ولا شغل ولا شيء. من he got it?
He don't got it now. Yeah.
تفضل. جزاك الله خير. طيب. So Al-Burqani rahimahullah, he fell in love with ilm al-hadith so badly that he said to some of the fuqaha, some scholars, the Shafi'i, whatever they were, they dealt with fiqh, jurists. He said to them, "Udu Allah an yanzi'a shahwat al-hadith min qalbi." He said, "Please make dua to Allah to remove the lust of hadith from my heart. Ask Allah to take it away from me, because it has prevented me. It is keeping me busy. It's preoccupying me from everything else, the rest of the Islamic sciences. And I have no interest, I have no desire, I have no thought night and day except for ilm al-hadith." Did the water is set for a minute?
For a minute, yes. I counted 1, 2.
Jazakallah khairan. Al-Muhim, you guys check out the book, inshallah, and you'll be shocked. You read these different statements of these imams, whether they were from the Salaf or those who came afterwards, and how much they loved knowledge, how devoted they were to knowledge, how obsessed they were with knowledge in general, let alone with the knowledge, the sacred knowledge of the Prophet ﷺ's hadith, and the sciences that deal with the hadith of the Messenger of Allah ﷺ. And this is one of the most crucial points. One of the most, people ask how to learn, how to get it. How did you get it? You got to be in love with it. You can't just love it, but you got to be in love with the knowledge. And once you get a good foundation, you get a good asas, you should take a field of expertise. You should major in a thing. As we explained in the 40 Hadith on Seeking Knowledge, Volume 1. أرحم أمتي بأمتي أبو بكر وأشدهم في أمر الله عمر وأصدقهم حياء عثمان إلى آخر الحديث. The Prophet ﷺ said, the most merciful of my nation to my nation is Abu Bakr. The toughest of my nation is Umar. The shyest of my nation is Uthman. To the end of that narration, proving that there is takhassus, especially if you have a team. And there are people who are talented enough to learn this, to have this, to memorize this. He's great in Quran, he's great in fiqh, he's great in lugha. But it doesn't mean that those things are all his majors. Let alone someone who's weak as myself, whose talent is limited as myself, whose time is limited, you need to focus on a field of expertise, a specialty even more. Let alone if you have people that are around you supporting cast. Naam? طيب, khair inshallah. That's enough for tonight. Wallahu alam. Bismillah. Jazakallah khair, Hamza. Fadal.
So look, sorry.
Tafadal.
Assalamu alaikum.
May Allah bless you.
Astaghfirullah.
I mean,
Well, okay. If you brush your teeth with a miswak, right, and you're fasting in Ramadan, right, And let's say if you go too far, and a little bit of throw up comes out.
لا يكلف الله نفسا إلا وسعها. لا حرج.
Jazakallah khair.
وإياكم. تفضل.
Initials A. Alan UK. Assalamu alaikum, Ustad. Is it from the correct manners to have self-confidence as a Muslim?
Self-confidence. Like we said last night, English, Arabic, different languages, different religions, different cultures. Self-confidence could also be translated as pride or conceit. A person who's cocky, full of himself. Or it could also be understood as just, I studied, I've prepared, I've rehearsed, I'm experienced, and there's nothing to be afraid or scared of. Bismillah. I'm going to deliver my speech. I'm going to ask for the sister's hand in marriage. I have self-confidence. I know what I bring to the table. I'm not saying I'm, the Don Juan, the best looking person, but I'm not the worst looking person. I smell good. I'm clean. I'm this, I'm that. Bismillah. So it depends on what's your intention and self-confidence. And of course, like all things, there's a line between bravery and stupidity. There's a line between the two, but that line is no doubt about that. Sometimes that's not bravery, but that's foolishness. And other people say, no, that's what it means to have heart. So it depends, Yani. So from one aspect, yes, a Muslim should have self-confidence. And the self-confidence, of course, is going to be based off of trust in Allah. That you're not going to get anything unless Allah wills it. And that you don't know your qadr until you attempt it. And that you're using the things that Allah has taught you and given you. Right? And Allah Azza wa Jalla is the one who says to prepare yourselves. And Allah is the one who says take your precaution. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who says look at your enemy as your enemy. So I have a khutbah to do. I'm not scared. I'm not afraid. I'm not worried. I'm not anxious. I'm not birds in my stomach. I have self-confidence, meaning I've studied properly. I've rehearsed. I've practiced. I've laid it out. Bismillah. Right? If that's what you mean, then yes. And if you mean other than that, thinking that you're in control, etc., 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 then of course not. Wallahu ta'ala alam. Hamza.
What is one etiquette that a student of knowledge has that I don't have?
An etiquette that students of knowledge have, that students of knowledge are humans. So their etiquette, yani the etiquette, the pieces of etiquette, there are manners that you have that others don't, and vice versa. Perfection is for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If you want to learn how to be a good student of knowledge, then you have to remain being a student of knowledge. Stick around. Don't quit. Don't give up. Don't leave. Whether it's with me or somebody else. Stay loyal. And we explained this for the Hadith on Seeking Knowledge, Volume 2. Okay? Wallahu ta'ala, may Allah bless you. I mean, polishing your character with yourself, with Allah first and foremost, with your teacher, takes time. But you have to be willing to learn. Naam? Wallahu alam. Fadal.
Initials SH, Queens, New York. Can you give us a detailed and practical timetable schedule advice? How do busy scholars and students of knowledge manage your time, and how do you?
Can't do that in the Q&A. Detailed, so on and so forth. Wallah, that needs another class or another session.
Initials RN, Manhattan, New York. How to balance being a husband with working and going to the masjid, and how to give wife enough quality time.
As far as balancing between work and the masjid, then it's simple. If you live in the vicinity of the masjid, when it's time to pray, you go pray. If you have to walk or drive, whatever, you plan your time ahead of time. I have to have wudu, walking out the door, the iqamah, enough time to make the sunnahs or make the sunnahs in my house, sit on the front row. What heck is that? If the masjid is far away from you, it is outside of the vicinity of the adhan, you aren't required to go. If you wish to go, then that's best, and that's a virtue. Even if you have to drive 10 minutes, 15 minutes, walk 10, 15 minutes, whatever the case may be, if it's not a hardship. As far as giving your wife enough quality time, then obviously that's impossible. It's something I don't think has been achieved by any man, and I don't think can be achieved by a man in this dunya. Wallahu alam.
Initials ALM UK. Is it from Iman to want and to have a desire to lead the prayer? And what are the pitfalls in this course of action?
Desiring to lead the prayer is just like the answer about self-confidence, huh, Sajid? You want to lead the prayer for the rewards, وَجَعَلْنَا لِلْمُتَّقِينَ إِمَامًا. The Prophet ﷺ كان إماما. قصد حسن. You want to be in front of the people, leading the people, this and that, showing off, different story. And even the intention of making your parents proud. Yani, not for the dunya, but making them proud, making them happy is a part of birr walidain. You understand? So if that's your intention, you say khair. Wallahu alam.
Initials W.A. Brooklyn, New York. If one used to earn haram money, such as selling some haram product in a store, then repents and stops, what does he have to do with the money? What about if he used some of that haram money to buy something halal, like a car or a house? Is that anything specific required for the halal things he bought with the haram money? And does giving sadaqah make it up?
طيب. Inshallah ta'ala, you bought something halal or something that was haram, you made tawbah, it's done, it's in the past. Move forward. You don't have to get rid of the car or whatever the case may be, or the house. You stay as you are after sincere tawbah. Alright? And of course you want to make a lot of istighfar and give a lot of sadaqah. And as far as if you know the money specifically and you want to remove yourself from it specifically, then that's aqrabu taqwa, closer to piety. Wallahu ta'ala alam. Sajid.
Sheikh, the question of hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam where he says لا تشد الرحال إلا لثلاث مساجد أو كما قال.
Alayhi salatu wasalam.
Is that, does like wanting to pray at different masajids go into that?
Understood. Well, you want to pray at different masjids for the reward. Labas. Masjids that are famous, so on and so forth, يعني, versus شرف البقعة. هذه نقطة مهمة. شرف البقعة، فضيلة البقعة. شرف البقاع مكة مدينة والقدس. Alright? So there's a difference. يعني, of course, the ulama of Islam, they have a long discussion regarding that hadith. لا تشد الرحال, long discussion. باختصار, the Prophet ﷺ, what he means by this is that you're not to go on a spiritual journey for the virtue of a place and the specific rewards of a place except for those three cities, those three masjids. As far as I'm in Egypt, I want to pray this masjid, it's a famous masjid, such and such, I want to be there, I want to see it. One thing. Wallahu ta'ala alam. ماذا باختصار.
Initials W.A. Brooklyn, New York. Is there any Quranic or prophetic du'as to protect oneself from self-amazement, arrogance, showing off, etc.?
Self-amazement, of course, many du'as. And from those du'as, you ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to protect you from yourself. You ask Allah to protect you from yourself. Naam. Wallahu ta'ala alam, let alone one of the most common du'as is Sayyidul Istighfar, right? And you acknowledge that you wronged yourself. Abu'u laka bi ni'matika alayya. You acknowledge Allah's blessing upon you over and over again. وهكذا. There are many. Wallahu alam.
Initials S.H. Queens, New York. I listen to knowledge while washing dishes, using the bathroom, etc. There may be a lot of ilm I don't take notes on and I forget. Will this knowledge be proof against me on the day of judgment?
There's nothing wrong with that. Rather, that's a good thing. And there are different levels of studying. You study sitting down, you study memorizing, you study listening, and you also study by multitasking. You listening to the Quran being recited or knowledge being read or whatever while you're washing the dishes or using the bathroom or whatever, even if you don't get everything, that's better than you being idle. That's better than you being idle. And your brain being the night ta'ala, your heart, inshallah, depending on how good you are, will snag different bits and pieces of information that will be planted in your mind. And of course, you all know the story of Abu Hatim al-Razi and his son, okay, and how he said, I would read to my father even when he relieved himself. I would read the hadith when he was relieving himself, right? Taking advantage of the time. Wallahu ta'ala alam. Hamza.
Okay. Well, if I make the adhan, then after I make the adhan, another person comes and doesn't know that I made the adhan. And then he makes the adhan. What do? Do you tell them after they make the adhan that I made the adhan? Or when they start the adhan? Like when they...
You have an option. You can wait until they're done, or you can tell them in the middle of it. It's optional. Wallahu alam. Fadal.
Initials W.A. Brooklyn, New York. The hadith regarding shaitan flows through the son of Adam as the blood flows through his veins. What does this hadith mean? May Allah grant you pardon and well-being in this life and the next.
Jazakallahu khairan. The shaitan walking with Adam like blood flows through his veins. The shaitan is not going to leave the son of Adam alone. He's always there to bother, to instigate, to incite, to whisper. As Allah mentions, الَّذِي يُوَسْوِسُ فِي صُدُورِ, yani all men, he's whispering to. Okay? That's first and foremost. Secondly is, once again, the prophetic supplications in which you ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to protect you from the evil of your body parts and the different things and functions in your body. Wallahu ta'ala alam. We don't know to what extent, right? The shaitan is with someone. Wallahu alam.
Initial SH Queens, New York. How do we know if we are having proper tawakkul in Allah throughout our lives?
Proper tawakkul is clear. You make tawakkul pre, during, and after. Before you make your preparations, you ask Allah for help and assistance and guidance. Whilst you make your preparations, you ask Allah for assistance, for guidance, for help, for success, for victory. And after you've done everything that you possibly can, you know, Bismillah. And as we've explained this many times before, many non-Muslims, no matter how twisted or warped it may be, but they have the idea of tawakkul, even if it's not tawakkul in Allah. They know a general, a coach will say, we've done everything now, and it's all depending on what? What's the word that they use? Some may say that, but it's a word more common. Luck. They'll say this. Is this not the case? We've done this, and they'll say what? Now it's what?
Luck.
That's all that's left is luck. So what is meant by luck? Do Muslims believe in luck? But in his mind, that non-Muslim, he's making tawakkul in what? Luck. It's nothing more than we can what? We can't do anything. We've done everything humanly possible. Now we have to just rely and see what happens. So the concept of you're making tawakkul as a Muslim, what, before, during, and what? After you've made your preparations. If you do not prepare at all, that's not necessarily tawakkul. You're relying upon yourself, that's not tawakkul. Wallahu alam.
Initials SH Queens, New York. Guidance is with Allah. So how do we balance between trying to give da'wah and relying upon Allah to guide them?
No contradiction. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's guidance is the guidance of acceptance, of ilham. Okay? And the guidance of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the guidance of the du'at, of the imams, yani is hidayat dilala. You're showing people, steering people. It's no contradiction.
Initials MJ, Sydney, Australia. Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh. Do you have a system to organizing your library? Do you keep track of the books you have to prevent from buying the same book twice?
Like a system in organizing the library, yes and no. Yes. We've explained how to build a library in the way of the disciple. Please check it out. There's a chapter in the way of the disciple. One, building a library, right? Abdul Hadith. How many madhabs are there for building a library? What did we say?
I couldn't tell you, sir.
Aha. It's in there though. What's important is building a library, the different schools of thought and how to build a library. That's number one. Keeping a track of the books that you have, that way you don't buy the same book twice. I'm not praising myself in an arrogant or conceited manner, but I could never see that happening. It's like a child. You just don't forget your son's name or whatever the case may be. It's like, you know. If you ask me this book, that book, if you put it on there, and then we went to another bookstore, I would immediately know I have this book already. Immediately. Now, it's a different copy, it's a different tahqiq, but immediately, there's no way it can happen for me. Other people, mumkin, but I would never have that issue. You understand? So organizing the library alphabetically, your decimal system, qism al-hadith, qism al-fiqh, qism da. Okay? But as far as keeping a track on the books that you have or you don't have, that's something I think you should just know by heart. Right? It's like horses. Back in the day, you ever ask yourself the question, how did they know which horse was which? An army of cavalry, 50 horses, 100 horses, they tie the horse up, they go to, How do they know what horse is what? They just what? Exactly. There's no way you're going to mistake your horse for what? Because that's what you do. You're on that horse. You ride that horse. You have the relationship with that horse. Wallahu alam. Is more, Hamza? You got to go through the process again, huh?
It's good.
Perfect. But make sure you get rid of that, huh?
Yeah.
Munkar هذا. Fadda.
Issues W.A. Brooklyn, New York. What is the ruling on saying I forgot such and such verse? If one forgot some verses, what's the correct etiquette or manner of stating it?
As the Prophet ﷺ tells us, you say unsitu. I have been caused to forget. That's the best thing to say. That's the preferred way of saying it. I was caused to forget. And obviously is a discussion on what is the ruling on forgetting the Quran. The ruling on that, and can a person say, I forgot this, or I was caused to forget that? There are details regarding that. Someone who forgets, and some people, they hold the view, some of the Salaf and the ulama, they hold the view that a person cannot forget the Quran. It's impossible. And they said the only way that a person forgets the Quran is a punishment. Him not practicing it, not praying with it, not reviewing it. But the Quran that Allah gave him, is no way he would just be forgotten unless it's taken away from him. And some say that you can't even say that. And others, they say the exact what? Opposite. Wallahu alam. Fadil akhi.
Assalamu alaikum. In your journey of seeking knowledge, if it's 10 years or more, how has your knowledge changed over time? Did you come to change about how you...
How did you change, or did you change the knowledge? Evolution. No doubt about that. And if you don't evolve, then something's wrong with you. Because that means you remain stagnated. Now, what do we mean by evolution? That you start believing in some other stuff, your aqidah change, and you start getting on some other taqleed, madhab, shafi'i, stuff? Nah, we're not talking about that. We're not talking about no deviation from the way of purity, of orthodoxy, the way of the Salaf. All right, and when I say the way of the Salaf, it's a specific word, not the way of this scholar from the 8th century, or this modern day scholar. And this was said the what? The people. This is a difference. And many people who suffer from amateuristic strategy, they confuse the Salaf with other people, no matter how great or big those people are. No matter how great or big those giants are, such as Shaykh Islam ibn Taymiyyah, mountain. However, Shaykh Islam ibn Taymiyyah is not what? No, we didn't talk about the Prophet ﷺ. He's not the what?
From the Salaf.
He's not the Salaf. You understand this? Ibn Uthaymeen, how great and powerful and beautiful he was as an alim. He is not what? So for argument's sake, there's an opinion that Shaykh Ibn Uthaymeen has, or a conclusion by Ibn Taymiyyah, or whoever it may be. And the Salaf as-Salih never ever said that. They never discussed that. They never got into that, so on and so on and so forth. And a person says, I accept this. They say, you can't. Ibn Taymiyyah said this. Ibn Uthaymeen said that. You can't say this. They say, okay, tayyib. I know that Ibn Taymiyyah said that. I know that Ibn Uthaymeen said that. I know Fulan said that. But through my studies, I've reached a conclusion what the Tabi'een said, and I'm sticking with that. So, deviating from that, we're not what? Discussing that. That's not what we mean when we say evolution. But we're talking about evolving within the boundaries. Evolving within that which is correct and pure. So if you don't evolve after 10, 15, 20 years of studying and teaching and giving dawah, what are you doing? Okay, so yes, many things I've changed or evolved in through research, through studying. And that's why we say learn the form, but seek the formless. So that's you're supposed to have that goal in mind. Right? You're not supposed to want to be the same. I'm the same person I was 10 years ago with regards to studying and this and that. Certain things don't change. And certain things aren't supposed to change, of course. Certain things, there's no changes, there's no evolving. But that's not what I'm talking about. You guys get what I'm trying to say. Maturity, right? And other things you may change your opinion or your view on. And inshallah, hopefully change your opinion and your view is not based off of dunya, but hopefully it's based off of reading and studying. Understand? Wallahu ta'ala alam. Hamza.
Do I add nudity or
La. You're going to use that. Second steep.
and still leave it for 1 minute?
Yeah. Second steep. Good loose leaf tea, you should steep more than once. Some experts say that the first steeping is rinsing. You don't even drink it. You don't drink the liquor the first time you use the water. You rinse it and throw it out. You clean the tea. You rinse the tea. Then the second steep is actually the first. And then some teas, depending on the tea, second steep, third steep, and every steep has its own personality, his own flavor, has its own texture. Khairan. Fadl.
Shows W.A. Brooklyn, New York. How do you recommend for one to memorize the Quran? Would you recommend for one to start from Juz Amma until Baqarah? If it's easier for them to memorize Shura ayat?
If you can start from Fatiha and Baqarah, you do that. And I've seen people do it before. I've seen people do it. But most people, they have to start off building momentum. Starting from Juz Amma, going backwards, quote unquote. So it depends on the person and depends on the advice of your teacher, if you have a teacher. As far as if you don't have a teacher and you're memorizing by yourself, do whatever works. It's the bottom line when it comes to it. Do what works. Fadal.
Initial W.A. Brooklyn, New York. I work night shifts and I go to sleep early in the morning.
The water was supposed to sit. Is the water sitting?
I'm counting right now.
Bismillah. Put it in. Fadal. And like we said before, it's very important when it comes to loose leaf tea that you get a tea journal. That we write down your different experiences, what works and what doesn't work. The box said this, the lady from Korea, the man from this Kenya, he said this, but when I tried it, it didn't work. You have a tea journal. You write down the amounts, the temperatures, how long, the taste, so on and so forth. Jazakallah khairan. Fadal.
Initial W.A. Brooklyn, New York. I work night shifts and I go to sleep early in the morning. Does my bed routine stay the same, such as reciting?
Yes, when you go to sleep in the daytime, you're going to make the same supplications in general. Some supplications may be specific to night or predominantly geared towards night. Okay? However, this is your nighttime. All right? Even though there are differences between the day and the night. People do crimes in the daytime for sure. However, it's not like certain animals and insects don't come out until night, nocturnal. So certain things are specific to the night, but still you're going to make your adhkar inshallah ta'ala before you sleep, even if it's in the daytime. And as the poet said, don't let the daylight deceive. This is a profound statement. Don't let the daylight deceive. During the sun's hours, what? Aywa, fadl.
Initials E.C. Stuttgart, Germany.
Stuttgart.
One scholar says this is the strongest opinion, another says this is the strongest. Is it most of the time just personal view?
Personal view of what's correct, yes. No doubt about that. My personal view of what's right within the boundaries. From the different views of the Salaf Salih. From the different arguments that the ulama made, I pick this one. That's my opinion of what's the strongest. So, pick your fancy. But I feel it's most correct to go down to the sajda with my knees first. That's my personal opinion from the discussion, from the argument. And another says, my personal opinion is the hands first, meaning that's the strongest, supported by the most evidence, so on and so forth. Right? So it doesn't mean personal opinion based off of, I'll choose this one. La, let's hack at that. After study, after thinking, after reflecting. And of course, there is a manner, or there are manners to dealing with the differences of opinion of the people of knowledge. For the layman and for the student of knowledge. Both. You can't just do whatever you want and pick whatever you want and discard whatever you want. It doesn't work like that. And from the most common and widespread mistakes is a person, when they're asked why they do a thing, they say there's difference of opinion. Why do you pray like that? Why do you wear it? Oh, it's difference of opinion. Difference of opinion doesn't mean that's the dalil. But the difference of opinion means, please don't criticize me, right? Don't call me a bad name or a bad Muslim, because there is, among the ulama, they differed. So you can't force me, bully me into the corner saying, I have to cover my hands and face such and such, such and such, and I'm a bad Muslim if I don't. But that's not the proof stating that it's permissible to uncover your hands and face in front of non-mahrams. You understand the difference? right? So we have to learn how to split and separate things properly, categorize, compartmentalize, right? Wallahu alam. Hamza.
Oh, what is the reward for cleaning the masjid?
Allah Azza wa Jalla, He mentions that the men who are custodians of the masjid are those who believe in Allah in the last day. So that's the tazkiyah. إِنَّمَا يَعْمُرُ مَسَاجِدَ اللَّهِ. The men who are the maintainers and the custodians of the masjids are only men who such and such, such and such, such and such. So this is tazkiyah for those people who run the houses of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Also, and Allah knows best, perhaps one may say that cleaning the masjid, protecting the masjid, obtaining the masjid, maintaining the masjid will be a means behind a person being protected from punishment in the grave. Perhaps one could say that. Based off of the authentic hadith in the Sahih, there was a person, a man or a woman who used to sweep the masjid. كانت تقم المسجد. Sweep the masjid. Not funded, not just sweeping the masjid. And that person was of low birth. That person wasn't of noble birth. That person, their race and their birth, it wasn't looked up to in that society. And he died or she died. And no one told the Prophet. And the Prophet asked, where is such and such? Where is the woman or the man? The narrator different. They used to clean the masjid. They said, oh, they died. And the narrator says, كَأَنَّهُمْ صَغَرُوا أَمْرَهَا. As if they, it's no big deal. It's just such and such, the janitor. And the Prophet ﷺ, he says, دُلُّونِي عَلَى قَبْرِهَا. He says, tell me where you buried her. Show me the grave right now. And he went and he prayed to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, making dua, okay? And stating that the graves in the hadith al-qubura mamlu'atun dhulmatan. These graves are full of darkness. And Allah Azza wa Jalla, inna Allah yunawwiru halahum bi salati alayhim. Aw kama qala sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And Allah will make their graves brilliant because of my prayers for them. So this is also from the virtues of cleaning the masjid and looking after the masjid. Perhaps there'll be a witness for you on the day of judgment. Wallahu alam. Fadl.
Sallallahu alaikum. How do we be stronger?
How to be stronger? You invoke Allah, Al-Qawi, the most strong. And you ask Allah, do you believe in His quwwah and His qudra to make you stronger? You make tawassul with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's names and attributes. Oh Allah, supporter of the Prophet, supporter of the Sahaba. Hazim al-Ahzab, right? The Prophet ﷺ, the dua, right? He who destroyed the Confederates. Mujri as-Sahab, he who pushes the cloud, so on and so forth. You invoke Allah through His names and attributes with regards to strength and firmness. Wallahu ta'ala a'lam. From online further.
And it shows I'm connected in New York. Assalamu alaikum. I usually fast on Mondays and Thursdays. If I miss Thursday, can I fast another day instead?
If you miss the day that you normally fast, you make it up another day, that's fine. But obviously, it's a different day. It's not Thursday anymore. And Thursday isn't a specific day that a person is making a specific intention for, like the 6 days of Shawwal, or Arafah, or Muharram. Something that is only coming once a year, for example. But for argument's sake, if you normally fast on Thursdays, and you couldn't, and you make it up on Friday or another day with that intention of keeping your normal way, inshallah khair. Wallahu alam.
Initials MA Bronx, New York. Can a woman pray behind a guy who is not her mahram in public to join the jama'ah?
There's nothing wrong with that. A woman praying behind a man who isn't a mahram in public, jama'ah, as long as there's no fitna. As long as there's no fitna. Wallahu alam.
Initials AA. Reynolds. Don't know how to say that. Argentina. Is Husnul Muslim more authentic than An-Nawawi's Kitab al-Adhkar, who wrote Hisnul Muslim?
Hisnul Muslim, is it more authentic, so on and so forth, is smaller. Nawawi's book is large. Hisnul Muslim is a pocket book. So they're two different entities, totally. They aren't of the same size, they aren't of the same caliber, they aren't of the same design. So two different things, no need to compare them. There are hadith in Hisnul Muslim over which the scholars differ. And there are hadith in Nawawi's book over which scholars differ. Neither of the two is the Quran. Period. End of discussion. Neither of the two is the book of Allah. End of the paragraph. All right? So there are going to be things over which the people agree, and then there are going to be things over which they differ. What's important is the generality of those books, Hisn al-Muslim, inshallah, and always adhkar, are sound books in general. Like Kutub al-Sitta, for example, the 6 mother books of hadith are generally sound. Every single hadith in Sunan Abi Dawood didn't say that. Every single hadith in Ibn Majah didn't say that, but it's not a book 75% fabricated like other hadith books people wrote later on. It's not like a book which is full of all types of weird, strange, peculiar. Laysa hakadha. It's generally sound. All right, so you can't lose with either of the 2 books. And of course, that which is smaller in size and simpler in style is always better. Wallahu alam. That's a qaida. Smaller in size, simpler in style. That's in the manual of any book that you want to study. Usul fiqh, mustalah al-hadith, tajweed, fiqh shafi'i. Smaller size, simpler in style is always the way to go. Wallahu alam.
Abdul Ala from Kenya. Don't have a city. Is the question anyway or no?
Got to put your city and state, your initials, city and state, please. Province, town, village, suburb, urban, whatever yani it's called. Wallahu alam.
Nothing else from Allah.
Fadal.
What is some hidden sunnahs that people don't know about?
A hidden sunnah that people don't know about: kindness, smiling when you see your brother, spreading salams among people, your friends and people you don't know. It's one of the most common sunnahs that people neglect and abandon. Unfortunately, people only give salams to people from their race. And it's so weird. You go somewhere, you see somebody as clear as day that they're Muslim, right? You give them salams, they say, hey, how you doing? Or you walk up to them, unfortunately, you don't give them salams because people normally don't give you salams back. And you don't want to, and then you start talking to them and say, assalamu alaikum, brother. And the list goes on. People walk right past you, give salams to somebody else. Or someone says, are you Muslim? No, I'm not. My wife just dressed like this. I'm just wearing a kufi, a thobe, in the middle of America. Just, it's Halloween. Like, how can you be that ignorant? And where's your mind at, yani? But it's a reality. So there are many hidden sunnahs, and sunnahs that are public and open, right? Being kind. The Prophet was a kind man, right? He was thoughtful of people. وهكذا والله أعلم.
Assalamu alaikum. When we're giving da'wah, when we're teaching people, how do we make sure we're not too harsh, but we're not too soft that nothing happens?
Knowledge, fiqh, and hikmah. That's it. Let the knowledge speak for you. Let the fiqh take its place, right? Have trust and reliance in your training. So if you study with someone for a year, for 5 years, how they taught you, you sucked up the knowledge, don't worry. It's like the cup. Empty your cup, allow your teacher to fill up your cup, and when it's time for you to teach, you just what? Pour it out. Wallahu alam.
When you add an extra rak'ah and you're leading the prayer, what do you do?
The moment you remember, you stop that rak'ah. And you go back to the correct way in which you're praying. So if you stood up to a 5th rak'ah in dhuhr, you immediately go back down without making a takbir. Nothing additional. Go immediately back into the correct position. You make your tashahhud, okay? Like nothing happened. You salam out, and then you make your 2 sajda of sahu, etc. Wallahu ta'ala a'lam. Sajid.
Smiling to your brother is sadaqah. My answer is probably obvious, but does one need to have the niyyah to do that?
Understood. Some things, deeds, are based off of intentions. And there are other things that a person can do which would be valid without the intention. The Prophet ﷺ, he says, وَفِي بُضْعِ أَحَدِكُمْ صَدَقَةً. When a man goes to his wife, he gets charity. And obviously, a man, in most cases, he's not going to his wife with the intention of sadaqah. He's going to his wife with the intention of being with his wife. But the Prophet ﷺ explained to us and told us is that there's what? A reward. So some scholars explain there are some good deeds, some things that you get a reward for just by the default, without the specific niyyah. And perhaps that's from that. And obviously the niyyah was there first. The only reason why I'm smiling in your face is because you're my brother. And I've been taught smile on your brother's face. Wallahu ta'ala alam. So it's not necessarily that obvious. Wallahu alam. Fata Hamza.
What is good motivation to learn knowledge or to love knowledge?
Reading the biographies of the people of Hadith, like I just read to you. Reading their lives, reading about their lives, with the Imams of Hadith, how they lived and how they died, where they came from and where they went. Right? Everyone understand this? Wallahu alam.
E.T. from Nairobi, Kenya. I have a friend who has 4 wives and it's very hard for him to deal with. Can I take one from him?
A friend who has 4 wives, and it's very difficult to deal with those 4 wives. Can I take one of those wives from him? If he divorces one of them correctly, and her iddah is up, alhamdulillah, there's nothing wrong with that, right? It's what? Bismillah, khalas. Your friend, whatever the case may be, brother, whoever it is, al-muhim, once her iddah is done, it's just that, what? It's just that simple. We make it complicated. Oh, you married my ex-wife. You stole my wife. This and that. Okay, how a man steal your wife from you? Back in the day, in the tribe, he raided. He came in on a horse. He took your wife like they used to out of the tent, put her on the back of his horse, and rode off into the midnight. Mumkin. Wars were fought like that. Different tribes, they fought each other. Revenge was taken years later. I never forgot with your father, he took the bride from our tribe. She agreed later on. Different tribes, they kidnap their brides, and the bride, she cries, but then eventually she submits, and it's the custom. But I never forgot that offense. But in 2023, how does somebody steal your wife? Obviously, the man married your wife, and she was no longer what? Your wife. Regardless of how it happened, whether it was al-muhim, she's no longer your wife. So if you marry one of those women to help him out, and obviously it being difficult with him dealing with 4 wives or 1 wife, whatever the case may be, a woman needs a husband. A woman is not to be by herself. She needs a husband. So, khayran. Wallahu alam.
Initials A. Buenos. I think it's, I'm going to butcher the name, so I'm not going to read it. Argentina. I really fast outside of Ramadan due to health issues. I fasted more when I was younger and stronger. Should I prioritize 6 of Shawwal, Arafah, or Ashura?
If it's difficult for you to fast and the hardship upon your body, then don't do it unless it's fucked. As far as if it's something that you can bear, but you can't bear too much of, which should you prioritize? 6 of Shawwal, Arafah, or Muharram? All of them have their own virtues and their special virtues, a year, 2 years, so on and so forth. Perhaps, wallahu a'lam, the 6 days of Shawwal, perhaps. Whereas it's a consistent stroke. And perhaps fasting the 6 days of Shawwal after Ramadan is a sign that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has accepted your Ramadan. Wallahu a'lam.
Initials 18, Nairobi, Kenya. What do you say about the Muhajirun who went to Medina and took some of the wives of the Ansar?
The Muhajirun who took some of the wives of the Ansar. Once again, no man takes a wife from another woman in Islam. A man divorces his wife, and the man, the Ansari or the Muhajir, etc., he marries her, that's a different story. Even if a person says, I'm going to divorce my wife because you don't have one. But he didn't what? Take. As we explained. Wallahu alam.
Initials N.A. Chittagong, Bangladesh. Assalamu alaikum. What to do if someone makes me the sutra and starts to pray a long prayer in the masjid behind me, but I have to go somewhere?
If you have to leave, you have to leave. Try to put a chair or something as a replacement for your back. Or, you sitting there being that person's sutra. Wallahu alam. And obviously the person shouldn't be reciting for so long if someone else is sutra. Be mindful of people's needs. Wallahu alam.
Initials 18, Nairobi, Kenya. Can I teach a book that I was not taught or I don't have ijazah for, or I was taught by one of the sheikhs of Sunnah on YouTube?
If you understand the book properly and there's a need for you to teach it, you teach it. But teach it within the boundaries of your knowledge. Don't exceed that. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala surely knows best, and you make it clear to the people. We're studying this book. It doesn't have to be my explanation. We're just reading from it, so on and so forth. And beware, be careful. All right? If you have the desire to teach, you love to teach, then you need to invest in studying. Wallahu alam. And be very careful of the desire, the shahwat al-hadith. Right? It looks good, it's nice, it's glamorous, but it comes with a cost. And if you're not willing to pay that cost, you shouldn't have your eyes on, all right? Just like you said, a woman, right? She's beautiful, she's this and she's that. If you're not willing to do this and to make this sacrifice and go out here, then you should take your what? Don't fantasize and lust off of her if you're not willing to do what it takes to get that beautiful woman. All right, so the virtue of knowledge, the virtue of teaching, the virtue of giving dawah, the beauty, ulama, Bukhari, Imam Ahmad, da 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 da. I want to do that too. That's fine, but now you have to put in a little bit of work. And if you're unwilling to put in that work and to study consistently, then you need to take your eyes off of that. Wallahu ta'ala alam. We'll stop here tonight. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala truly knows best, and with him is all success. Alhamdulillah, Rabbil Alameen.